that juice leaking from that bodybuilder whilst on stage? No, that's just synthol, which he injected into his shoulder the night before to get a serious advantage. His plan backfired, and he flew off stage like a deflated balloon. Synthol sits at the edge of bodybuilding's shadow, used to sculpt, inflate, and deceive. And a few names have been caught in its orbit more than Flex Wheeler. For years, whispers followed him. Sudden changes in his physique, particularly in his arms and delts, led fans and fellow competitors to question whether the Sultan of Symmetry was too perfect to be untouched. Flex has given mixed answers over time, at moments denying he ever used it.
Fake weight synthol. Your mama and your daddy's fake weight and synthol. Come say that to my face. I love you, internet tough guys.
Yeah.
Synthol arms. Tell your mama
Cut.
that. Tell your mama that.
Yeah, y'all came to the wrong place today. We ain't with that boy.
Y'all just think y'all gonna just talk shit.
Yeah, cyberbully.
No repercussions.
They
Must
used
be
to.
out your mind.
In a Generation Iron interview, Flex admitted to having tried synthol and shared some scary industry secrets.
You know, in the 90s, that was a huge thing. It just as prevalent as using steroids. So, you know, I tried it to see what it would be like and everything like that. But, you know, I wasn't happy with the results and everything. But, you know, most people don't admit to trying it. And I'm not going to, you know, tattle on anybody else. But that's probably one of the pros and cons of me. I admit to everything I've ever done, but, you know, and majority of the people don't. So,
in another less-known interview, Flex explained how he injected some mysterious substance into his calves in order to get them to become inflamed and grow, an action which ultimately would ruin his calves.
No, I never had calf implants. Listen, I understood that when we use certain substances that it caused a inflamed effect when we use certain substances in certain areas. I understood that. Now looking back and seeing that I never had weak calves, I actually had better calves back in my early years than I did in my later years. But what I thought, it's like, wow, if it causes that inflamed effect when I do something to certain areas, what if I did that to my calves? So I started doing that exact same thing to my calves and everything like that. I remember one time in my hotel room, Kevin coming in like, dude, what you doing to your calves? And I showed you right then and there and showed you how. But
unfortunately, things would get worse for Flex Wheeler as he would eventually lose a leg from an accident.
My leg, and changed my life forever. And honestly, I don't know what that's gonna feel like. You know, I'm pretty mentally prepared for everything right now.
Greg Doucette. Greg Doucette's voice might be the loudest in fitness when it comes to calling out fake natties.
Who is the biggest fake natty you exposed that shocked everybody?
That shocked people? I would say probably that guy that just came back after a 2-year hiatus of doing David Dobrik.
Yeah.
I made a video on that. It got like maybe 500,000 views. I'm like, this guy's not natural because he doesn't look like me. And it's like, no, you could achieve that body natural. I'm like, yes, but he didn't.
But behind that high-octane delivery is a history that many would rather forget, including Greg himself. Long before the YouTube fame and supplement line, Greg competed in numerous natural bodybuilding competitions, while secretly using steroids. For years, he dominated shows labeled as drug-tested, even earning pro cards and national recognition. The truth came out slowly, first through rumors, then through forum leaks, and eventually his own reluctant admissions. He's since tried to justify it, saying the testing was flawed and he simply passed like many others do.
The rule, you know, it's not very common to see people like him be successful. You know, people like him usually belong in the gutter. He got lucky. You know, he found the lane and it paid off. You feel me? Now he's using his platform to bring pain. I don't know if you noticed, it's 2020. People are stressed out. People got to go to the gym. People are losing their jobs. And instead of using your channel to promote some kind of peace, you know, some kind of love, some kind of, you know, passion, bringing people together, all you want to do is pull a magnifying glass or turn fast and shit people are doing. How you gonna go around talking about who's natty and not you ain't even natty? Like, that fucking baffles me.
But to some fans, the damage was already done. The man who now demands transparency once exploited the very system he now criticizes, leaving a complicated legacy that blends truth-telling with selective memory. In a sport built on deception, Greg's biggest exposure might just be himself. Kevin Levrone. Kevin Levrone may have one of the best poker faces in bodybuilding history, because what started as a backstage joke may have accidentally rewritten the sport. The story goes that during the 1998 Night of Champions, Ronnie Coleman was backstage prepping, all relatively unknown, still considered a mid-tier pro, when Levrone walked up with a clear liquid in a shot glass. "Want a shot of vodka?" he said. Ronnie, ever calm, took it without hesitation and tossed it back.
Talked about training, working out. I gave him another shot. Gave him another shot. Gave him another shot, right? So about the fifth shot, he's like, "Man, this stuff pretty good. You got it. Let me have another shot of that. Man, that vodka, that made me feel real good."
Only later did Levrone admit it really was vodka. Whether it was a prank, a test of nerves, or a low-key mind game, it had the opposite effect. Ronnie went on to not only win the show, but ignite one of the most legendary runs in bodybuilding history. 8 straight Mr. Olympia titles. Levrone later laughed about it, calling it the prank that backfired harder than any other. It was meant to throw Ronnie off, maybe mess with his prep, except it did the exact opposite. It fueled a quiet storm, and Ronnie Coleman walked into that competition as an underdog and walked out as a king.
In second place, Flex Wheeler.
Arnold Schwarzenegger. The golden era of bodybuilding may have sculpted icons, but pumping iron didn't just document a sport, it staged a narrative. And if you look closely, the real story wasn't about muscle, it was about manipulation. Behind the iconic smiles and dramatic posing stood a setup so one-sided it would make a fixed fight blush. Arnold Schwarzenegger was paid $50,000 and given 5% of the film's profits to compete in the 1975 Mr. Olympia, after announcing his retirement the year before. Why come back? Because the movie needed a star, and the star needed to win. Even more damning, one of the judges for that Olympia was Charles Gaines, the writer of the movie's script. That's not a conflict of interest, it's the entire playbook.
There's a scene where even Joe Weider says, "Hey Arnold, don't you think that Robbie Robinson can beat you?"
Don't you think that anybody else has a chance to beat you like Robbie Robinson?
No, come on, Joe.
All of a sudden this black guy's coming in here now and there's a whole nother different kind of attention. And he didn't like that. He knew that Joe Weider appreciated my physique more. Kind of a slap in the face.
Yeah.
I can understand that.
Here's why Arnold has to win 1975. Arnold's paid $50K to appear in the movie. Charles Gaines, the writer of the book and the script of the movie, he was a judge.
Who you think he gonna vote for?
Robbie Robinson, a legitimate contender with a freakish physique and a rising fan base, quickly became the wild card producers didn't plan for. His symmetry, fullness, and stage presence rivaled Arnold's, and it didn't go unnoticed. In fact, footage allegedly shows Joe Weider himself suggesting Robbie might beat Arnold, a scene that was conveniently cut. So was the beach segment where Robbie's physique outshined Arnold's right before he was told not to flex. The message was clear. This wasn't his story to tell. All the while, supporting athletes signed fake contracts, were misled on pay, and used for hype, while Arnold received special treatment. When Robbie pushed back, refused to smile and play along, he was sidelined, blacklisted, and left out of deals that others cashed in on. His only crime? Being too good, too vocal, and too black at the wrong time in the wrong era. What do you think of Robbie's story? Is there truth to it, or is it all fiction? Perhaps another example, which we will share later, might clarify things to do with Arnold's competitiveness. Kai Greene's known for his poetic posing and deep, introspective quotes, but put him next to Phil Heath and all that calm turns combustible. In one of their most infamous face-offs, Kai repeatedly flicks his hair toward Phil, not so much by accident as by deliberate, escalating annoyance. It's not just posing, it's poking. Phil, sharp-tongued and always ready to fire back, doesn't let it slide, and the tension erupts.
Well, I did have a side bet with my buddy Isaac Hines that there could be some physicality between these two. Guy's hair just hit Phil, so. You see the roundness in the muscle from the shoulders
Spread
to
out,
the
gentlemen.
chest.
Hey!
Oh, wow. Here we go.
Spread out! Spread out!
What starts as a physique showdown quickly mutates into a battle of pride, ego, and unspoken animosity that's been brewing beneath the tan and tinsel for years. Tom Platz. Tom Platz, hailed as the Quad Father for his freakishly dense and sculpted legs, remains one of the most mythic figures in bodybuilding. His high-rep, high-intensity squats became the stuff of legend, but also the center of controversy. One lift in particular, a 500-pound squat for 23 reps, has become both a celebrated feat and a lightning rod for debate. In this clip from an exhibition, Platz performs the squat to a roaring crowd, but skeptics have long claimed the plates may not have been standard. One of those skeptics? None other than the world's strongest man winner, Bill Kazmaier, who publicly questioned the lift's legitimacy, even though he was standing directly behind Platz as a spotter during the set.
So when you see Tom Platz doing the body power 15, 20 years ago, and I'm standing behind him going, bullshit. He's got 500 pounds in the bar, so he says, right? For 23 reps. He's retired. He never did 23 reps with 500 pounds while he had a hold of his ass. If you look at the 6 plates that are on the bar, the first 2 are about this big. They're like double-sized 50s. They're huge. And then there's a 20 with a nice 3 spikes on it. And when you look at those other 4 plates, they look like they have a piece of tin that has this nice shape of a plate. And did you guys ever hear what a duck sounds like? Did you ever see a duck walk? Did you ever see a weight move and squat at 500 pounds? Does it not move the bar? That bar doesn't move. Anybody watch somebody's trunk when you're moving forward and backward and compensating in squat? And you look at the 3rd rep and the 10th rep and the 17th rep and nothing changes? I call bullshit.
That contradiction only deepened the intrigue. Critics argue the lift was more theatrical than raw power, while supporters cite Platz's brutal training history and unshakable intensity as proof of authenticity. Regardless of where the truth lies, Platz's legacy isn't defined by a single lift. It's carved into the iron history books by his unmatched dedication to leg training and the intensity he brought every time he stepped under the bar. This one is a big question mark. Let us know if you think Tom's record was legit or not. Arnold Schwarzenegger again. Sergio Oliva's story reads like an epic. Equal parts rebellion, rivalry, and raw power. Born in Cuba, he rose from revolutionary roots to become one of the most iconic physiques ever to grace a bodybuilding stage. With impossibly wide shoulders, a razor-thin waist, and thunderous legs, Sergio didn't just compete, he redefined the standard. His 1969 victory over a rising Arnold Schwarzenegger cemented his place at the top.
Sergio, when he was at his peak, he was unbelievable. I remember one day we met in Chicago, and I invited him to a very sophisticated restaurant, and he had to wear a shirt and a tie. And sure enough, Sergio came in with his tank top and with his medals in front of him. And I thought it was going to throw all of us out. But not Sergio. When they looked at him, the maitre d' didn't say a word. The place was quiet. They just stared and stared at him. He was absolutely wonderful, fabulous sight you can imagine when he was in shape.
But the rematch in 1970 would shift the tide forever. Suspended after issuing a bold challenge, Sergio returned to a game that was now Arnold's to play and win. The real turning point came in October at the Brooklyn Academy of Music. Gunning for his fourth Mr. Olympia title, Sergio was still reeling from the recent controversy. During a tense pose-down, the two legends were locked in a dead heat. Sergio, exhausted, leaned over and whispered to Arnold, "I'm wiped out. Let's walk off." Arnold nodded, but as Sergio turned away, Arnold stayed, subtly signaling confusion to the crowd.
And then in the process of them posing and going through the mandatories, the judge told him to leave the stage. And in the process of them leaving the stage, Sergio, Arnold let him go first, and he walked off the stage.
Yeah.
And then the judge said, "You guys come back on the stage," but Sergio didn't hear him. So he just kept walking. So Arnold was already stayed out on the stage and just kept posing and posing and posing and posing. And then they gave Arnold the Mr. Olympia Championship.
I saw footage when Sergio stepped down. Arnold was like, "Where are you going? You quitting?" Almost like you
That's
just
right.
quit.
Exactly.
He made a scene out of it.
Yeah, he made a scene out of it.
The audience erupted, chanting his name as he bowed alone on stage. Whether calculated or instinctive, it worked. The judges awarded Arnold the win, and from that moment on, he never lost again. Some in the crowd were stunned, quietly murmuring, "I know who the real champion is. You don't need tactics to prove greatness." It was a moment of pure gamesmanship, one that etched Arnold's legacy deeper, but also cast a long shadow over Sergio's. To this day, the youngest Mr. Olympia champion remains one of its most controversial, and the 1970 showdown remains one of the sports. Do you think that Arnold really tricked Sergio? Or is it Sergio's fault for not being more attentive? Let us know in the comments.